walked through the long halls of the Confederation building on Nexus Prime. Her shoes made soft clicking sounds on the marble floor. After 15 years as Earth's main diplomat, she knew every corner of this place. The walls showed pictures of peace treaties signed between alien races that had fought for hundreds of years. Today felt different, though. Could see worry in the eyes of the other diplomats as they passed her. They walked faster than usual, their lizard-like faces showing stress. The vegans whispered in their musical language, something they only did when nervous. Even the tall, ghostly ethereals seemed to move with less grace than normal. Reached the main council chamber early. She liked to arrive before the others to prepare her thoughts. The room was huge, with seats arranged in a circle. Each seat was made for a different alien body type. The human seat looked small and simple compared to the others, but had learned that being underestimated was often an advantage. The first to arrive was Commander from the Hegemony. His scales were dark red, which meant he was angry about something. They were warriors by nature, always ready to fight. They respected strength above all else, but somehow they had learned to respect too. Ambassador said with his rough voice, "I hope you bring good news today. My people grow tired of waiting for action." Smiled calmly, "Patience, Commander. Good solutions take time to develop." Next came Trade Minister from the Vegan Consortium. The vegans looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and 4 arms. They cared most about money and trade routes. Always smelled like expensive perfume and wore jewelry worth more than most people made in a year. "Darling," said in her sweet voice, "tell me you have solved the border dispute between thee and the. It is costing my people millions of credits each day." "We are making progress," replied. This was true. She had been working on that particular problem for 3 months. They wanted to expand their territory and they were afraid of being conquered. Had almost found a solution that would let both sides feel like they won. The other council members arrived one by one. The ethereals floated in without making any sound, their bodies looking like smoke given shape. They were very old and very wise, but they thought in ways that other species found hard to understand. The smaller races came last, the rat-like, the crystal beings called the Harmony, and others. Had helped all of them at some point. When the Harmony had started fighting over mining rights, spent 6 months finding asteroids that both groups could use. When the ethereals had a problem with space pirates, convinced them to patrol that area in exchange for trade benefits with the vegans. That was what humans did best. They found ways for everyone to get what they needed without fighting. Other species were amazed by this ability. They often asked how humans had learned to be such good peacekeepers. The truth was that humans had not always been peaceful. Knew her history. Earth had seen terrible wars, but humans had learned from their mistakes. They discovered that working together gave better results than fighting. When humans finally reached the stars and met alien races, they chose to use words instead of weapons. Council leader called the meeting to order. He was an ethereal, old even by their standards. His voice echoed in everyone's mind rather than through their ears. "We have received disturbing reports," announced. "Human settlements in the Outer Rim territories are being attacked." Sat up straight. This was the first she had heard of any attacks. What kind of attacks? Who is responsible? Commander activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared showing destroyed buildings and empty streets. 3 human colonies have gone silent in the past 2 weeks. When our ships arrived, they found no survivors. Felt cold fear in her stomach. She looked at the images more carefully. The destruction was complete but strange. Buildings were destroyed, but there were no signs of looting. No bodies were found, but there was evidence that many people had died. "This does not look like normal piracy," she said. "Pirates take things. These attackers took nothing." "That is what worries us," said Trade Minister. "If they are not after money or resources, what do they want?" Studied the images for a long time. The destruction pattern was too organized, too complete. This was not random violence. Someone had planned this carefully. "I need to contact Earth immediately," said. "My government needs to know about this." "Of course," agreed. "We will investigate further and share any information we discover." But noticed something in his mental voice. It sounded like he was being polite rather than truly concerned. She looked around the room and saw similar expressions on the other faces. They were worried, yes, but not the way they would be if their own people were being killed. After the meeting ended, walked back to her office. The human embassy was small compared to the others, but it was comfortable. Had pictures of Earth on her walls, mountains, oceans, cities full of people living peaceful lives. She activated her communication system and sent an emergency message to Earth. The message would take 3 days to reach home, and another 3 days for a reply to come back. That was assuming Earth decided to reply quickly. As she waited, thought about the images she had seen. 3 colonies destroyed, thousands of people dead or missing, and no clear reason why. In her 15 years as a diplomat, she had seen many conflicts, but this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something much worse. Assistant, a young human named, brought her a cup of tea. He looked worried too. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I have been listening to communications from other embassies. They are saying that maybe humans should handle this problem themselves." Nodded slowly. She had expected this reaction. When they had border disputes, everyone wanted to help solve them because they were strong. When the vegans had trade problems, everyone cared because the vegans were rich. But humans were just the peacekeepers. They were useful for solving other people's problems, but when humans had problems of their own, they were expected to handle them alone. Sat at her desk and began writing reports. If her people were under attack, she would find out who was responsible and why. She would use every diplomatic tool she had learned, every favor she had earned, and every friendship she had built over the years. But deep in her mind, remembered something her grandfather had told her long ago. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He had said, "Never forget that diplomacy only works when both sides want peace. When someone decides they want war instead, words become useless." Hoped it would not come to that. She really hoped it would not come to that. 3 weeks passed and the attacks on human colonies grew worse. Barely slept as reports came in every day. 7 more settlements had been destroyed. The pattern was always the same: complete destruction, no survivors, nothing stolen. Stood in her office looking at a star map. Red dots marked where attacks had happened. The dots formed a line moving toward the more populated human worlds. Whoever was doing this was not attacking randomly. They had a plan. Burst into her office without knocking. His face was pale and his hands shook. "Ambassador, we just lost contact with New Geneva." His blood turned to ice. New Geneva was not a small frontier colony. It was home to 12 million people. It had schools, hospitals, farms, and factories. Children played in its parks. Families lived quiet, happy lives there. "Are you sure?" asked. "The communication array went dead 4 hours ago. We have sent 3 ships to check, but they are still 2 days away." Sat down heavily in her chair. If New Geneva was gone, then 12 million people were dead. The number was too big to understand. Tried to imagine that many people, but her mind could not hold the idea. She activated her communication system and sent an emergency message to the Confederation Council. Within an hour, an emergency session was called. Walked to the council chamber with slow, heavy steps. She carried a data pad with all the information about the attacks. The council chamber was full when she arrived. Word had spread quickly about New Geneva. The alien diplomats spoke to each other in worried voices. Noticed that some of them looked sad, but others seemed more interested than upset. Council leader called for silence. "Ambassador has requested this emergency session. Please share your information." stood and activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing the destroyed colonies. She had put together a detailed report that showed the attack pattern and the evidence she had found. "These attacks are being carried out by a group called the Void Seekers," said. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt like screaming. "They believe that all biological life is wrong and must be destroyed. They are not pirates or raiders. They are genocidal fanatics." The room was quiet as continued. "The attack pattern shows they are moving toward the core human worlds. In 3 weeks, they have killed almost 2 million people. If New Geneva has fallen, that number is now 14 million. Looked around the room at the alien faces. These attackers will not stop with human colonies. If they believe all biological life must die, they will eventually target all of our worlds. We need to work together to stop them before they grow stronger." Commander was the first to speak. "This is indeed terrible, but the hegemony cannot spare ships to protect human territories. We have our own borders to defend." Trade Minister nodded in agreement. "The vegan consortium sympathizes with human losses, but we cannot disrupt our trade routes to chase after unknown attackers in the Outer Rim." Felt anger building inside her chest. These are not just human territories under attack. The Void Seekers want to kill all organic life. Today it is humans, tomorrow it could be any of you. "Perhaps," said slowly, "but we cannot be certain of their intentions. It is possible they have specific grievances against humanity." Stared at the ethereal leader. Specific grievances. What grievance could justify murdering 12 million innocent people? "We do not know the full situation," replied a diplomat. "Perhaps humans did something to anger these Void Seekers. It would not be wise to intervene without understanding the complete truth." His hands clenched into fists. She had spent 15 years helping these people solve their problems. She had prevented wars, saved lives, and brought peace to dozens of conflicts. Now, when her own people were being slaughtered, they were suggesting it might be humanity's fault. "I am requesting immediate military assistance," said formally. "Under Article 12 of the Confederation Charter, any member species under threat of extinction can request aid from the collective fleet." The council members looked at each other, could see them having silent conversations. The ethereals spoke to each other through their mental links, the growled in their harsh language. The vegans whispered behind their hands. Finally spoke. "We will call for a vote, all in favor of providing military assistance to humanity." Watched as only 3 hands raised, 3 out of 27 council members. Her heart sank. "All opposed?" 15 hands raised. "Abstaining?" 9 hands, including his own ethereal form. "The motion fails," announced. "The Confederation will not provide military assistance at this time." Stood in shocked silence. She had expected some debate, some negotiation, some political maneuvering. She had not expected outright abandonment. Commander spoke into the silence. "Humanity should handle its own problems. You have been telling us for years that you are skilled at finding peaceful solutions. Perhaps you should try negotiating with these Void Seekers." "You cannot negotiate with people who want to commit genocide," said quietly. "Perhaps," said Trade Minister with a cold smile, "humanity will learn to be more careful about making enemies in the future." Realized with horrible clarity what was happening. These species had grown tired of humanity's influence. They were jealous of how other races came to humans for help instead of going to them. They saw this crisis as an opportunity to reduce human power in the galaxy. Gathered her data pad and walked toward the exit. At the door, she turned back to face the council. "For 15 years, I have worked to keep peace in this galaxy. I have prevented wars between your species. I have saved millions of your people from dying in conflicts that could have been avoided. I did this because I believed we were all working together for a better future." The council chamber was completely silent. Today, you have shown me that I was wrong. When humanity needed help, you abandoned us. You will remember this decision for the rest of your lives because everything that happens next will be your choice, not ours." Walked out of the chamber and returned to her office. She sat at her desk and opened a secure communication channel to Earth. This was not a normal diplomatic message. This was a special code that had never been used in over 2 centuries. She typed carefully, "Council has refused assistance. 14 million confirmed dead. Genocide continues. Diplomacy has failed. Recommend immediate activation of Damocles Protocol. Authorization code, Thunder 77 Alpha." Stared at the message for a long time before sending it. She knew what those words meant. She knew what would happen when Earth received them. Part of her hoped that Earth would find another way, some solution she had not considered. But as she thought about the images of destroyed colonies and the cold faces of the council members, realized that some problems could not be solved with words. She sent the message. 3 days later, received a reply from Earth. It was short. Message received and understood. Damocles Protocol authorized. All diplomatic personnel will be recalled within 48 hours. Protocol will activate upon your return to Earth. Admiral sends her regards. Looked around her office at the pictures of Earth, the awards for successful negotiations, the gifts from grateful alien leaders. 15 years of her life were in this room. 15 years of believing that peace was always possible if people just tried hard enough. She began packing her things. Outside her window, she could see the alien embassies and the beautiful gardens of Nexus Prime. Soon, all of this would change. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity, something that had been hidden beneath centuries of diplomatic politeness. Just hoped that when it was over, there would still be a galaxy left to save. Fleet Admiral Sarah stood in the command center on Earth, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where human colonies had been destroyed. Blue dots showed where human diplomats and peacekeepers were stationed throughout alien space. Green dots marked what other species thought were simple human settlements and research stations. Admiral was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Her family had been military for generations, back when Earth was still divided into different countries. She had spent her entire life preparing for a day she hoped would never come. "Send the recall order," she said to her communications officer. "All human diplomatic personnel are to return to Earth immediately. All peacekeeping forces are to withdraw from active zones." "Yes, Admiral, what reason should we give?" "Tell them we are conducting a review of our galactic policies. Let them think we are upset about the council vote." The communication officer nodded and began sending messages. Around the galaxy, human diplomats and peacekeepers received orders to come home. Most of them had no idea what was really happening. They thought Earth was just making a political statement. But some humans in special positions received different orders. Commander Lisa Park was pretending to be a simple merchant captain, but her ship carried weapons that could destroy an entire fleet. Dr. James Wright appeared to be a civilian researcher, but his laboratory could produce biological weapons in hours. Lieutenant Maya Singh looked like a communications technician, but she could take control of any alien computer system. These people had been waiting their whole lives for activation orders. They were part of a secret network that had existed for over 2 centuries. While human diplomats worked for peace on the surface, these hidden operatives prepared for war in the shadows. Admiral walked to another section of the command center where her intelligence team worked. Colonel looked up from his computer screens. "Admiral, we have confirmed the identity of the Void Seekers. They are not just random fanatics. They have advanced technology and significant resources. They have been planning this campaign for decades." "How many ships do they have?" "At least 300 heavy cruisers, plus support vessels. They are based in the Omega sector. using abandoned mining facilities as their headquarters. Admiral studied the tactical information. The Void Seekers were strong, but they had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because human diplomats always chose peaceful solutions. They had no idea what humanity was really capable of. "Begin Phase 1, Admiral ordered. Activate all sleeper assets. Recall the Deep Space Fleet." Around the galaxy, things began to change in ways that most alien species did not notice at first. Human merchants started canceling trade deals and returning to human space. Human research teams packed up their equipment and left alien worlds. Human peacekeepers abandoned their posts in conflict zones. The first aliens to notice were the commander contacted its replacement at the human embassy, but found the building empty. When he demanded an explanation from his own government, they told him the humans were probably just angry about the council vote. But then strange things started happening. A patrol fleet near the border with human space detected unusual energy readings. When they investigated, they found nothing but empty space. However, their sensors kept showing ghost signals, as if large ships were moving through areas where no ships should be. The Vegan Trade Consortium noticed that human merchant vessels had started taking different routes through space. Instead of using the main trade lanes, they were traveling through areas that were supposed to be empty. When vegan ships tried to follow them, the humans disappeared as if they had never been there. The ethereals tried to use their mental powers to contact human minds, something they had done for diplomatic purposes many times before. But now they found that human thoughts were protected by some kind of barrier they could not understand. It was as if every human mind had suddenly become invisible. On Nexus Prime, the Confederation Council held an emergency meeting. They were confused and worried by humanity's strange behavior. "Perhaps we made an error," said Trade Minister. "The humans are clearly upset about our decision not to help them." "Let them be upset," replied Commander. "They will calm down eventually. Humans always choose diplomacy over violence." Council leader was not so sure. His ancient mind sensed something changing in the galaxy, something that made him feel afraid for the first time in centuries. "I believe we may have misunderstood humanity's true nature," he said quietly. As they debated, ship landed at a secret facility on the edge of human space. She had never seen this place before, even though she had been told it existed. The base was enormous, hidden inside a hollow asteroid. When walked through its corridors, she saw things that shocked her. Thousands of ships filled massive hangar bays. These were not the small, peaceful vessels that other species knew about. These were warships designed for one purpose: total destruction of enemy forces. The smallest ship was larger than most alien cruisers. The largest looked like it could destroy entire planets. Was escorted to Admiral's office. The Admiral looked exactly like the pictures had seen, but meeting her in person was different. Could see the weight of terrible responsibility in the older woman's eyes. "Ambassador," Admiral said, "you have done excellent work for many years. I know this situation is difficult for you." "Admiral, I have to ask, how long have these ships existed?" "We began building the Deep Space Fleet 70 years ago. The shipyards have been operating in secret ever since. We currently have over 8,000 combat vessels, plus support ships and special operations craft." Felt dizzy. 8,000 warships. That was more military power than the rest of the galaxy combined. Why? Why build such a fleet if we were committed to peace? Admiral walked to the window that looked out over the hangar bay. "Do you know why humans became diplomats instead of conquerors when we first reached the stars? Because we learned that war was wasteful and destructive. That is part of the truth, but not all of it. We chose diplomacy because we were afraid of what would happen if we chose war. Humans are very good at killing things. We are better at it than any species in this galaxy. We chose to hide that ability behind peaceful words because we thought it was the right thing to do." looked out at the massive warships, and now the galaxy has shown us that our peaceful approach was a mistake. When we needed help, our allies abandoned us. When our people were being murdered, they suggested it was our own fault. They have forgotten that they asked for our protection, not the other way around. Admiral turned back to. The Damocles Protocol was created by my great-grandmother after first contact with alien species. She realized that humans would always be seen as weak if we only showed our peaceful side. So she created a plan that would ensure humanity's survival if diplomacy ever failed. What is the plan? We show the galaxy what humans look like when we stop being nice. Spent the next few hours learning about the true scope of humanity's preparations. The civilian colonies that had been attacked were actually forward military bases. The research stations in supposedly empty systems were weapon factories and training grounds. The merchant ships that traveled between human worlds were actually supply vessels keeping the secret fleet operational. For 2 centuries, while human diplomats worked for peace, human engineers had been preparing for war. They had developed technologies that other species did not even know were possible. Stealth systems that could hide entire fleets, weapons that could destroy ships from light years away, computer viruses that could take control of alien systems in seconds. Most importantly, humans had learned everything about alien military capabilities while revealing nothing about their own. Every peace treaty had negotiated included detailed information about alien weapons and defenses. Every diplomatic mission had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Admiral said as their meeting ended, "I want you to return to Nexus Prime one last time. I have a message for the Confederation Council." Took the sealed message and returned to her ship. As she left the secret base, she saw the massive fleet preparing for departure. Thousands of warships were moving into formation, their weapons powered up and ready for battle. Knew that everything was about to change. The galaxy had known humanity as peaceful diplomats who solved problems with words. Soon, they would discover what humans had been hiding beneath that peaceful mask. As her ship jumped to hyperspace, wondered if there would be anything left of the old galaxy when this was over. The Void Seekers had started this war by attacking innocent people, but they had made their biggest mistake when they forced humanity to abandon diplomacy. Now they would learn why humans had chosen peace in the first place. They were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for over 200 years. Ship arrived at Nexus Prime to find the space around the capital world in chaos. Ships from dozens of species were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. The reason became clear when looked at her sensors. A human fleet had appeared in the system without warning. 200 warships hung in space like dark angels, their weapons pointed at the planet below. Had never seen ships like these. They were sleek and deadly, with armor that seemed to bend light around them. Even their smallest escort ships were larger than the biggest alien battleships. Received a communication from the fleet commander. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Park. You are cleared to land at the Confederation building. Please deliver your message as quickly as possible." Shuttle descended through the atmosphere toward Nexus Prime's surface. She could see crowds of aliens in the streets, all looking up at the sky where the human fleet waited. Some were running to spaceports to escape. Others stood frozen in fear. The Confederation building was nearly empty when arrived. Most of the diplomats had fled when the human fleet appeared. Only the core council members remained, huddled together in the main chamber like frightened children. Walked into the chamber carrying Admiral's message. The alien leaders looked at her with a mixture of fear and anger. Commander Scales had turned pale yellow, which meant terror in body language. Trade Minister's 4 hands shook as she clutched her jewelry. Even council leader seemed less ghostly and more solid, as if fear had made him more real. "You cannot threaten this council," Commander said, trying to sound brave. This is neutral territory under galactic law. Looked at him calmly. Commander, I am here to deliver a message from Admiral. After that, I suggest you listen very carefully to what she has to say. Activated the holographic display and played Admiral, recorded message. The Admiral appeared as a life-sized image in the center of the room. Members of the Confederation Council, Admiral began. 3 weeks ago, you refused to help humanity when we were under attack. You suggested that 14 million dead humans might be our own fault. You abandoned your allies when we needed you most. The image of Admiral paused and looked directly at each council member. You made this choice because you believed humanity was weak. You thought we needed your protection. You were wrong. The display changed to show images of the human fleet. Thousands of warships in perfect formation, their weapons capable of destroying entire planets. For 2 centuries, humanity chose diplomacy because we believed in peace. We absorbed insults, mediated your conflicts, and bled to maintain stability in this galaxy. We did this not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to choose restraint. Watched the alien faces as they realized the truth. Humanity had never needed their protection. Humanity had been protecting them. You have forced us to abandon diplomacy, Admiral continued. The Void Seekers will be eliminated completely, but your betrayal has shown us that the current galactic system is broken beyond repair. When we are finished dealing with the immediate threat, we will return to discuss new arrangements. The message ended, looked around the silent chamber and delivered her own words. The Admiral wanted me to tell you personally that the old galaxy is dead. You killed it when you abandoned us. What comes next will be entirely different. Turned and walked away, leaving the alien leaders sitting in stunned silence. As she boarded her shuttle, she could see more human ships arriving in the system. The demonstration was just beginning. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the hunt for the Void Seekers had begun. Human fleets appeared simultaneously at dozens of locations, striking with precision that alien military leaders thought impossible. The Void Seekers had hidden their bases in remote systems, protected by asteroid fields and nebula clouds. The humans found them anyway. Captain Torres commanded a human strike fleet attacking a Void Seeker supply depot. His ships moved through space like ghosts, invisible to enemy sensors until they opened fire. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire depot was gone, along with every ship that had been docked there. But the humans did more than just destroy ships and bases. They hunted down every person, every organization, and every government that had helped the Void Seekers. Intelligence networks that had taken decades to build were dismantled in hours. Financial systems that had funded the genocide were destroyed so completely that their former existence became questionable. The galaxy's major powers watched these operations with growing alarm. The humans were not just better at warfare than anyone had expected. They were better at everything. Their intelligence gathering was perfect. Their technology was centuries ahead of everyone else. Their coordination was flawless. Commander made the first mistake when he returned to space. Still angry about being humiliated at Nexus Prime, he convinced his government to test the human strength. A battle fleet attacked what they thought was a small human patrol. The human patrol consisted of 3 ships. The fleet had 30. The battle should have been over in minutes with a victory. Instead, the 3 human ships destroyed the entire fleet without taking any damage. They used weapons they had never seen before, creating explosions that tore through space itself. When the hegemony demanded an explanation, they received a simple response. You attacked first. Consider this a warning. Trade Minister tried a different approach. The vegan consortium attempted to cut off trade routes to human worlds, hoping to force humanity to negotiate. They discovered that every trade route they closed had already been replaced by secret human supply lines that worked better than the old ones. Worse, the humans cut off trade routes in return, collapsing the vegan economy in days. The ethereal collective made the most dangerous mistake. They attempted to use their psychic powers to influence human military leaders. Council leader personally tried to enter Admiral's mind to force her to stop the war. What he found there destroyed his sanity. Admiral's thoughts were protected by mental shields that no ethereal had ever encountered. But more terrifying was what lay beneath those shields. The complete battle plan for the entire war, worked out in perfect detail before the first shot was fired. Every move the aliens might make had been predicted. Every strategy they might try had been countered in advance. Every alliance they might form had already been infiltrated and sabotaged. The humans had not just prepared for this war, they had planned for every possible outcome and prepared solutions for all of them. Broke contact and fled back to his own mind, but the damage was done. He spent the next week in a catatonic state, mentally screaming about the terrible patience of humanity. As the weeks passed, the Void Seekers network continued to collapse. Human forces struck at hidden bases, secret laboratories, and underground recruitment centers. They found Void Seeker agents in 100 different governments and eliminated them along with anyone who had helped them. The final battle came when the humans located the Void Seekers' main stronghold in the Omega sector. It was a massive space station built inside a dead planet, protected by the largest fleet the Fanatics could assemble. They had over 500 ships and defensive systems that could destroy entire solar systems. Admiral arrived with a human fleet that made their defenses look like toys. The human ships did not even bother to hide themselves. They simply appeared in the system and waited. The Void Seeker leader sent a message demanding to know why the humans had come. Admiral's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "You killed 14 million innocent people. Now you die." The battle was not really a battle. It was an execution. Human weapons reached across space and destroyed Void Seeker ships before they could even fire back. The space station's defenses were turned against itself by human computer viruses. In 2 hours, the entire Void Seeker civilization was extinct. But the humans were not finished. Instead of leaving the system, they began systematically dismantling everything in it. They harvested every asteroid, stripped every planet of useful materials, and even captured the system's star to power their own technology. When they were done, the Omega sector was empty space. No trace remained that anything had ever existed there. The message to the galaxy was clear. This was what happened to those who committed genocide against humanity. Complete erasure from existence. Watched the final reports from the safety of Earth's command center. The Void Seekers were gone, but so was the galaxy she had known. Fear ruled the stars now. Alien governments were collapsing as their people demanded protection from the humans. Trade routes were empty because no one dared to travel without human permission. Admiral joined her at the observation deck. "It is finished," the Admiral said quietly. "The immediate threat is eliminated." "And what happens now?" asked. Admiral looked out at the stars. "Now we begin the difficult part. We have to decide what kind of galaxy we want to live in. The old system is dead, but we can build something better from its remains." Thought about the terrified faces of the alien leaders. Will they ever trust us again? "Trust?" Admiral smiled sadly. "They never trusted us, they used us. There is a difference. Now they will learn to respect us instead. Respect lasts longer than trust, and it is much more reliable." As looked out at the peaceful Earth below, she wondered if Admiral was right. The galaxy would never be the same again. The question was whether the new order would be better than the old one, or just more honest about where power really lay. 6 months after the last Void Seeker ship was destroyed, stood in a new council chamber on the human world of Terra Nova. The old Confederation building on Nexus Prime had been abandoned, left empty as a monument to failed diplomacy. This new chamber was smaller, simpler, and much more honest about who was actually in charge. wore her diplomatic robes again, but everything else had changed. She was no longer ambassador, mediator between equals. She was now High Representative, humanity's voice to the galaxy. The difference in titles was small, but it represented a transformation that had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. The alien representatives filed into the chamber one by one, their movements careful and respectful. Commander kept his scales a neutral brown color and spoke only when spoken to. His proud warrior culture had tried to resist human authority 3 more times after their first defeat. Each attempt had ended with entire fleets simply disappearing, their crews found later on remote planets with their memories wiped clean. They had learned to be polite. Trade Minister no longer wore expensive jewelry or perfume. The vegan trade consortium had collapsed economically within weeks of opposing humanity. Their trade routes, their banking systems, their entire financial network had been revealed to be completely dependent on human tolerance. When that tolerance was withdrawn, centuries of vegan prosperity vanished overnight. Now represented a much humbler confederation that asked permission before conducting any significant business. Council leader was no longer in charge of anything. The ancient ethereal had never recovered from his attempt to read Admiral's mind. He spent his days in a treatment facility, muttering about the terrible patience of humanity and plans within plans within plans. His replacement, a younger ethereal named Zephyr, was much more careful about using psychic abilities around humans. Took her place at the head of the council table. In the old system, all representatives had been equal. In the new system, spoke for humanity and humanity spoke for the galaxy. The arrangement was not democracy, but it was honest. Today we will review the security situation in the Outer Rim territories, announced. Admiral Park will provide the briefing. Admiral Lisa Park appeared as a hologram in the center of the table. Remembered when Lisa had pretended to be a simple merchant captain. Now she commanded the 3rd Human Fleet and was responsible for keeping peace in a quarter of the galaxy. Representatives, Admiral Park began, I am pleased to report that piracy incidents in the Outer Rim have decreased by 97% over the past 6 months. Slavery operations have been completely eliminated. Border disputes between member species have been resolved through arbitration. Commander raised his hand carefully. Admiral Park, the government wishes to thank humanity for ending the border conflict with the new boundaries are acceptable to both sides. The arbitration was fair, Admiral Park replied. Both species received what they needed, not what they wanted. This is how all future disputes will be handled. Knew the truth behind that arbitration. Human intelligence had discovered that the conflict was being artificially prolonged by weapons dealers who profited from the war. Those dealers had been visited by human special forces teams and had decided to find new careers in agriculture and mining. Without outside interference, the 2 species had quickly found a reasonable compromise. Trade Minister spoke next. The Vegan Consortium requests guidance on expanding trade routes into the Perseus Spiral. We want to ensure our activities do not conflict with human security interests. Approved, Admiral Park said after checking her data pad. Human convoy ships will escort vegan merchant vessels until the routes are established. The escort fee will be 5% of cargo value. Notice that did not complain about the fee. In the old system, the vegans would have demanded free protection as their right. In the new system, they understood that protection was a service that required payment. They also understood that human protection was the most reliable in the galaxy. The meeting continued with reports from across human space. Learned that crime rates had dropped dramatically on worlds where human peacekeepers had been stationed. Disease outbreaks were being contained more quickly thanks to human medical technology. Even natural disasters were being handled more efficiently through human coordination. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful, more prosperous, and more stable than it had ever been. The only cost was freedom. No species could make major decisions without human approval. No military could operate without human oversight. No government could function without human support. After the meeting ended, walked through the corridors of Terra Nova's Capitol building. The walls were covered with artwork from dozens of different species, gifts from grateful governments. She passed by paintings, sculptures, and musical recordings that celebrated humanity's role as protector of galactic peace. Stopped at a window that looked out over the city. Terra Nova had been a small human colony just 1 year ago. Now it was the unofficial capital of the galaxy, home to millions of humans and aliens who worked together to maintain the new order. Children played in the parks below, human children, vegan children, and others. They grew up together, learning each other's languages and customs. These children would never know the fear and hatred that had driven the old conflicts. To them, human authority would seem natural and right. But sometimes wondered what would happen to those children when they grew up. Would they accept human rule forever? Or would they eventually try to reclaim the independence their species had lost? Deep thoughts. Turned to see Admiral approaching. The Admiral looked older than she had 6 months ago. The weight of ruling an entire galaxy was not easy to carry, even for someone with her strength. "I was thinking about the future," replied, "wondering if this new system will last." "All systems change eventually," Admiral said. "The question is whether they change gradually or violently. Our job is to make sure that when change comes, it comes peacefully." Looked back out the window at the playing children. "Do you think we made the right choice, abandoning diplomacy for force?" Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Diplomacy only works when all sides want the same thing, peace. For 2 centuries, we assumed that everyone shared our desire for harmony and cooperation. We were wrong. The Admiral joined at the window. Some species respected only strength. Others cared only for profit. A few were driven by hatred and fear. They used our peaceful nature against us, taking our help while planning our destruction. "So we became what they understood," said. "We became what we needed to become to survive. The Void Seekers showed us what happens when evil finds no resistance. The Council's betrayal showed us what happens when good intentions meet selfish reality." Nodded slowly. She had read the intelligence reports about other threats that human forces had quietly eliminated. Terrorist groups planning biological attacks, corporations experimenting with planet-killing weapons, governments preparing to invade weaker neighbors. All of these problems had been solved before they could cause massive suffering. "The old galaxy was not peaceful," Admiral continued. "It was simply hiding its violence behind polite words. We have brought real peace, even if it required showing our strength first." "And if someone challenges us again?" asked. Admiral smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "Then they will learn the same lesson the vegans and ethereals learned. Resistance is futile, but cooperation is rewarded. Those who work with us prosper. Those who work against us disappear." Understood the implications. Humanity's patience had limits. They had given the galaxy one chance to choose cooperation freely. That chance had been wasted. There would not be another. As the months passed, the new order. Human fleets patrolled every sector of inhabited space. Human administrators worked alongside alien governments to ensure efficient resource distribution. Human teachers educated alien children about the benefits of peaceful cooperation. Resistance movements formed occasionally, usually led by former military officers or politicians who missed the old system. These movements were quickly infiltrated by human intelligence operatives and disbanded before they could cause serious problems. The leaders were usually given the choice between comfortable retirement or extended vacations on distant planets. Returned to Nexus Prime 1 year after humanity had abandoned diplomacy. The beautiful capital world was now a museum, its empty buildings preserved as reminders of what happened when good intentions were not supported by strength. Tour groups of alien children walked through the old Confederation building, listening to guides explain how the previous system had failed. Stood in the old council chamber where she had spent 15 years of her life. The chairs were still arranged in their circle, but now they were covered with dust and silence. She remembered the hope she had felt in this room, the belief that words could solve any problem. In a way, she still believed that. Words backed by absolute power were very effective at solving problems. The galaxy had learned to listen when humans spoke because they knew the consequences of not listening. Activated her communication device and recorded a message that would be broadcast throughout human space. It was the first anniversary of the end of diplomacy, and humanity wanted to mark the occasion. Citizens of the galaxy began. 1 year ago, humanity was forced to abandon our commitment to peaceful negotiation. We made this choice not because we wanted to, but because we had no alternative. Looked around the empty chamber as she continued. Today, the galaxy is more peaceful than it has been in centuries. Wars have ended. Slavery has been abolished. Genocide has been prevented. These achievements required strength, not just good intentions. Some of you miss the old system, continued. You remember when your species had more independence, more freedom to make your own choices. We understand this nostalgia, but we ask you to remember what that freedom cost. His voice became harder. Your freedom cost 14 million human lives. It cost centuries of suffering as species fought endless wars. It cost billions of people who lived in fear while their leaders played political games. Humanity has given you something better than freedom. We have given you peace, prosperity, and protection. Children grow up safely. Trade flows smoothly. Conflicts are resolved quickly and fairly. This is the gift of order. Look directly into the camera. Some of you may be thinking about challenging this order. You may believe that you can find ways to resist human authority or restore the old system. Before you make such choices, remember what happened to those who opposed us before. The Void Seekers believed they could commit genocide without consequences. They were removed from existence so completely that most species now doubt they ever existed. They believed their military strength made them our equals. Their fleets learned otherwise. The vegans believed their economic power gave them independence. Their economy learned otherwise. His expression softened slightly. But remember also what happened to those who chose cooperation. They prosper under human protection. Their people live better lives than their ancestors ever imagined possible. They have learned that human rule is not tyranny, it is responsibility. Ended the broadcast and stood alone in the empty chamber. Outside, she could hear the wind blowing through the abandoned city. Nexus Prime was beautiful in its emptiness, a perfect monument to the failure of good intentions. As walked back to her ship, she passed a memorial wall that had been erected near the old human embassy. It listed the names of every human who had died in the Void Seeker attacks, 14,237,612 people. Each name was carved into black stone that reflected the light like stars. At the bottom of the wall, words were written in both human and alien languages. They died for a galaxy that abandoned them. They are remembered by a humanity that did not abandon the galaxy. Touched the wall gently before returning to her ship. Tomorrow, she would return to Terra Nova and continue the work of maintaining galactic order. There would be disputes to arbitrate, problems to solve, and challenges to overcome. But all of these tasks would be handled efficiently by a system that finally understood the relationship between power and responsibility. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were truly capable of when they stopped being diplomatic. Now they knew. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, in the peaceful cities of 1,000 worlds, in the dreams of children who no longer feared war, the answer echoed like a whisper. Humanity was capable of anything, and the galaxy would never sleep peacefully again, knowing that their tranquility existed only as long as humanity chose to allow it.